Let me ask you something. What if everything you were taught about motivation was completely wrong? Not slightly off, not a little outdated, completely wrong. What if the very thing companies use to push people to work harder is quietly destroying their creativity, their passion, and their desire to do anything at all? And here's the part that will stay with you until the very end of this video. The science has known the truth for over 50 years, but almost nobody listened. Until one man decided to write it all down. Hey, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found this. And if you've been here before, you already know what we do. We take incredible books and we bring them to life in a way that actually sticks with you. Today, we're talking about a book called Drive by Daniel H. Pink. And I have to be honest with you, this book genuinely changed the way I think about work, about goals, about why some people wake up excited every single morning, and why others feel completely empty doing a job that pays them really well. If you've ever felt unmotivated at work and couldn't explain why, if you've ever started something with passion and then slowly lost interest, if you've ever wondered why money never quite feels like enough, this book is going to answer questions you didn't even know you had. Stay with me, because what we're about to talk about, it's going to hit differently. And if you enjoy this kind of deep, meaningful content, take 2 seconds, hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps more people find this, and honestly, it means everything. All right, let's go. Let me take you back to 1949. Picture a group of monkeys sitting inside a psychology lab at the University of Wisconsin. The researcher's name is Harry Harlow, and he's running what he thinks is a routine experiment. He puts a simple mechanical puzzle in front of each monkey. Just a few metal pieces, a hook, a pin, a hinge. The kind of puzzle a young child could figure out in a few minutes. Now, here's the thing. Harlow wasn't expecting anything special. He just wanted to observe behavior before introducing rewards. But something strange happened. The monkeys started solving the puzzles. On their own, without being asked, without any reward waiting for them. They just did it. And not just once. They did it again and again. With focus, with what looked almost like joy. Harlow was confused. At that time, scientists believed there were only 2 main forces that drove behavior. The first was biological, hunger, thirst, survival instincts. The second was external rewards and punishments, the classic carrot and stick idea. But this didn't fit either of those. The monkeys weren't hungry. They weren't scared. Nobody was offering them food. They were just enjoying the puzzle. So Harlow introduced something. He started rewarding the monkeys with food every time they solved it correctly. And here's where it gets really interesting. You'd think that would make them even more motivated, right? More engaged? More eager? It didn't. They actually got worse. They made more errors. They lost focus. The drive that was once natural and organic started to fade. Harlow called this a third drive, something beyond biology and beyond reward. An inner force, a deep human, and apparently monkey, desire to engage with interesting work, simply because it's interesting. He published his findings. The psychology community basically ignored them. And the business world? It kept doing exactly what it had always done. Pay people, set targets, give bonuses, threaten consequences. The carrot and the stick. For decades, that was the playbook. But here's what Daniel Pink wants you to understand. The world changed, and the playbook didn't. Now stay with me, because this is where things start to get deeply personal. Part 2. The carrot and stick, and why it's failing you. Let's talk about how most of the world still thinks about motivation. Imagine you're a manager at a company. You want your team to work harder. What do? You offer a bonus. You create a competition. You say, hit this target and you get a reward. Miss it, and there are consequences. This is called the if-then reward system. If you do this, then you get that. It's simple, it feels logical, and in certain situations, it absolutely works. If you need someone to do a repetitive, mechanical task with no creativity required, the carrot and stick is fine. Assembly line work, data entry, folding boxes. But here's the problem. The 21st century doesn't run on assembly lines anymore. The world today runs on creativity, on problem solving, on original thinking, on work that requires genuine engagement and not just physical presence. And for that kind of work, external rewards don't just fail to help, they actively make things worse. Daniel Pink calls this the Sawyer effect, and it comes from a scene in Mark Twain's classic story about Tom Sawyer. You might remember it. Tom has to paint a fence. He hates it. But instead of looking miserable, he acts like it's the greatest privilege in the world. His friends are curious. They beg to help. Some even pay him for the chance. Twain's observation was this, that turning play into work kills the desire to do it. And the reverse is also true. Turning work into play ignites something inside people that no bonus can buy. Pink backs this up with real science. Studies show that when you offer people external rewards for creative tasks, something called intrinsic motivation, the inner desire to do something, actually drops. It's called the over-justification effect. When your brain receives an external reward, it starts to re-explain why you did the task. Instead of, "I did it because I love it," your brain says, "I did it for the money." And the next time the money isn't there, neither is the motivation. This is why so many people start passionate projects and then slowly lose interest the moment it starts to feel like a job. This is why some of the most talented people in the world feel completely empty doing work that pays extremely well. The carrot and stick worked beautifully for the 20th century, but we are living in a different world now, and most people, most companies, are still using old tools for a new problem. Part 3. Motivation 3.0. The new operating system. Daniel Pink makes a beautiful analogy in this book. He says that human motivation is like an operating system. Early operating systems, Motivation 1.0, were purely biological. Survive, eat, stay safe. That worked for early humans trying to make it through the day. Then came Motivation 2.0, the upgrade. Rewards and punishments. Do this, get that. Don't do this, face consequences. This worked for the industrial age. It ran the world for over 100 years. But here's the thing about operating systems. Eventually, they crash. They can't keep up with the complexity of what you're trying to do. And that's exactly where we are. The new operating system, Motivation 3.0, is built on something different entirely. It's built on 3 things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. These are the 3 pillars of drive. And for the rest of this video, we're going to go deep into each one, because understanding these 3 things can genuinely change how you work, how you live, and how you feel about the time you spend on this earth. But wait, this is just the beginning. And the first pillar? It's going to challenge something most people believe deeply about what it means to be productive. Part 4. Autonomy, the power of being trusted. Think about the best work you've ever done in your life. Not the work someone forced you to do. Not the work you did because you were afraid of consequences. The work that felt alive. The project where time disappeared. Where you stayed up late, not because you had to, but because you genuinely couldn't stop. I want you to hold that feeling in your mind for a moment. Now ask yourself, how much control did you have over that work? I'm willing to bet, a lot. Autonomy is the first pillar of drive, and Pink defines it as the desire to direct our own lives. It's not freedom from all structure. It's not chaos. It's the deep human need to feel like you have real ownership over what you do, how you do it, when you do it, and who you do it with. And here's where the business world gets this so deeply wrong. Most management systems are built on distrust. They assume that if you leave people alone, they'll goof off. They'll waste time. They'll underperform. So they watch. They micromanage. They schedule every hour. They require constant updates and check-ins. They create systems to monitor productivity at every step. And what does that communicate to the person being managed? We don't trust you. Now think about how that feels. Imagine you're a talented chef. You've studied for years. You genuinely love cooking. You have real creative instincts. And then someone stands behind you all day, telling you exactly what temperature to set the pan, exactly how to hold the knife, exactly what spices to use. Even if every instruction is technically correct, something essential is being crushed. Your love for it slowly drains away. Pink points to a company called Atlassian, the Australian software firm, that once started a tradition called FedEx Days. They told employees, once a quarter, for 24 hours, you can work on anything you want. No assignments, no direction, no oversight. The only rule? You have to show something the next day. What happened? An explosion of creativity, new product features, bug fixes that had been ignored for months, entirely new ideas that became real products, all in 24 hours, because the people were trusted. Microsoft, Google, Apple, many of the most innovative companies in history have found versions of this to be true. When you give smart, motivated people real autonomy, they don't slack off, they soar. Pink's message here is quiet, but powerful. Managing people like children creates people who behave like children. Trusting people like professionals creates professionals who act like owners. Now let me paint you a picture. It's late at night. The city is quiet. Everyone else is asleep. And somewhere, a musician is sitting alone in a practice room, playing the same passage of music over and over again. Not because someone is watching. Not because a test is coming up tomorrow. Just because it's not quite right yet. Or imagine a programmer completely absorbed in debugging a piece of code at 2 a.m. Not for a deadline, just because the problem is fascinating and something inside them needs to solve it. That feeling, that beautiful, consuming pull toward getting better at something that matters to you, that is mastery. And it's the second pillar of drive. Pink says mastery is the desire to get better and better at something that matters. And he says something that I find genuinely profound. Mastery is a mindset. It's not a destination. It's not a trophy you win. It's an orientation toward life itself. He borrows a concept from psychologist Carol Dweck, the idea of the growth mindset, the belief that your abilities are not fixed, that effort creates improvement, that the struggle itself is the point. People with this mindset don't fear failure. They expect it. They learn from it. They use it. And here's what's beautiful about mastery. It's inherently motivating. You don't need someone to push you towards something you're genuinely trying to master. The pull is already there, built-in, natural. Think about the games you got addicted to as a kid, the sport you played obsessively, the hobby that consumed every weekend. Nobody had to drag you there. The challenge pulled you in. Pink also introduces an idea here that might be the most honest thing in the entire book. He says, mastery is asymptotic. An asymptote is a mathematical concept, a line that gets closer and closer to a curve, but never quite touches it. And that's mastery. You never fully arrive. You never reach perfect. No matter how skilled you become, there is always more to learn, more to refine, more to discover. And here's the counterintuitive truth. That's not discouraging. That's energizing, because it means the journey never ends. The game never becomes boring. There is always a next level. The people who understand this live differently. They don't chase endpoints. They fall in love with the process. And starting today, try this one small change. Instead of asking yourself, am I good at this yet? Ask yourself, am I better than I was last month? That single shift in question changes everything. By the way, if this is resonating with you, share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life a single video might quietly change. Now we come to the third pillar, and this one This one is different. Autonomy is about the what and the how. Mastery is about the growth. But purpose is about the why. And without the why, none of it fully works. Think about the person who has complete freedom at work, who is genuinely good at what they do, and still feels hollow. Still drags themselves to their desk every morning. Still checks the clock every hour. You've probably met someone like this. Maybe you've been someone like this. That hollow feeling has a name. It's the absence of purpose. Daniel Pink defines purpose as the desire to do what we do in service of something larger than ourselves. And here's something that might surprise you. Study after study shows that beyond a certain point, more money doesn't make people happier or more motivated. Once your basic needs are met and you feel financially secure, extra income barely moves the needle on meaningful satisfaction. But meaning? Purpose? The feeling that what you do matters? That changes everything. Think about a nurse who works brutal 12-hour shifts, deals with suffering every single day, earns a modest salary, and genuinely loves their work. Now think about an investment banker who earns millions but lies awake at night feeling like their life is empty. The difference isn't salary. The difference isn't even comfort. The difference is meaning. Pink talks about how the most motivated people and organizations in the world are driven by what he calls a purpose motive. Not just profit, but a deep reason that goes beyond the transaction. He quotes the late management thinker Peter Drucker, who once asked the employees of a hospital, "What is your job?" A janitor answered, "My job is to heal sick people." Not clean floors, not follow a checklist. Heal sick people. That janitor understood purpose. And Pink argues that when organizations tap into this, when leaders genuinely communicate the deeper why behind the work, something shifts. People stop working for the company. They start working with it. They stop showing up because they have to. They start showing up because they want to. And here's the honest, sometimes uncomfortable question I want to leave you with right now. Why do you do what you do? Not the answer you give in interviews, not the polished version, the real one. If you can't answer that quickly, maybe this book is exactly what you needed to find today. Now here's the part nobody talks about. Pink doesn't stop at just explaining the 3 pillars. He goes further. And what he reveals about if-then rewards is genuinely uncomfortable. He outlines what he calls the 7 deadly flaws of carrot and stick motivation. I'm not going to list all 7, but let me tell you the ones that hit the hardest. The first one, external rewards can extinguish intrinsic motivation. We talked about this earlier with the monkeys and with the over-justification effect. But Pink deepens it here. He says once you've paid someone to do something they used to love, you've changed the relationship. The internal flame starts to dim, and no amount of money will relight it the same way. The second one, external rewards can crush creativity. This one has been proven in research again and again. When people are working under the pressure of a reward, their thinking narrows. They focus only on what's needed to get the prize. They stop exploring, stop experimenting, stop taking the kinds of creative risks that produce genuine breakthroughs. The third one, external rewards can encourage unethical behavior. This one should terrify every CEO and manager alive. When you set aggressive financial targets tied to big bonuses, you are sometimes, not always but sometimes, quietly encouraging people to cut corners, to bend rules, to tell you what you want to hear instead of what's actually true. Pink doesn't say this to be provocative. The research is clear. When the stakes around an external reward get high enough, ethics can erode. And we've seen this play out at enormous scale. Financial crises, corporate scandals, sales teams manipulating numbers, all of it, at least in part, driven by aggressive if-then incentive structures. The message isn't that rewards are always evil. The message is that they are powerful. And power used without wisdom causes damage. Okay, so we've talked about what's broken. We've talked about the 3 pillars. But let me bring this down to earth. What does a Motivation 3.0 life actually look like? Pink talks about a concept called flow, borrowed from psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is that state where you are so completely absorbed in a challenging task that time stops. Self-consciousness disappears. You're not thinking about dinner or emails or what people think of you. You're just in it. Athletes call it being in the zone. Musicians describe it as the music playing itself. Flow happens at a specific intersection, when a task is challenging enough to stretch you, but not so hard that it breaks you. Too easy? You get bored. Too hard? You get anxious. Right in the middle? You get flow. And here's the key insight. Flow is almost impossible to reach when you're focused purely on external outcomes, on the reward waiting at the end, on what others will think. Flow happens when you're fully inside the doing. Pink also talks about how we can redesign our lives, even within constraints, to create more autonomy, more mastery, more purpose. He introduces a concept called job crafting, the idea that even within a fixed job, people can reshape what they do, who they interact with, and how they see the meaning of their work. A hospital cleaner who sees themselves as part of the healing process. A teacher who sees themselves not as a curriculum deliverer, but as a possibility opener. A programmer who sees every bug not as an obstacle, but as a puzzle to be solved. The job doesn't always have to change. The lens does. And that lens, that small but enormous shift in how you see the meaning of your daily work, that's something you control. Nobody can take that from you. Honestly, I want to ask you something. What's the one thing in your life right now that you know you should be doing, but you keep waiting for the right moment to start? Leave it in the comments, because I think saying it out loud, even just typing it, is the first step toward actually doing it. The deeper truth about human beings. I want to slow down for a moment before we close, because there's something underneath everything Daniel Pink is saying in this book. Something that isn't just about management or productivity or business strategy. It's something deeply human. The entire premise of Motivation 2.0, the carrot and the stick, is built on a hidden assumption. That assumption is this: people are fundamentally lazy. That without incentives and consequences, human beings will do nothing. That we need to be controlled, managed, monitored, pushed. But Daniel Pink is making a radical counter-argument. He's saying, that's not who we are. He's saying that human beings, at their core, are naturally curious, naturally driven to grow, naturally inclined toward meaning, naturally wanting to contribute to something beyond themselves. The system hasn't failed because people are broken. The system has failed because it was built on the wrong story about who people are. And when you change the story, when you build workplaces, schools, and families that operate from a place of trust rather than control, something extraordinary happens. People rise. Not all of them. Not perfectly. Not without challenges. But on the whole, when people are treated like capable, intelligent, purposeful human beings, they behave like capable, intelligent, purposeful human beings. That's not idealism. That's a result that shows up in data, in research labs, in real companies that have tried it and seen it work. The science isn't new. We just haven't been brave enough to believe it. Do you remember the question I asked you at the very beginning? What if everything you were taught about motivation was completely wrong? I hope now you feel how true that might be. Because here's the honest reality. Most of us grew up being motivated by grades, by approval, by fear of punishment, by the promise of rewards. And for a while, it worked. But somewhere along the way, many of us started to feel something fading. That spark, that natural curiosity, that sense of aliveness that used to show up when we were kids, when we built things just to build them, drew pictures just to draw them, explored just because exploring was wonderful. Daniel Pink is not asking you to abandon all structure. He's not saying rewards are useless. He's not asking you to quit your job tomorrow. He's asking you something quieter. He's asking you to consider, what if the work you were meant to do doesn't need to be forced out of you? What if the life you're supposed to live doesn't require constant external pressure to keep moving? What if, underneath all the noise, the bonuses and the deadlines and the comparisons and the fear, what if underneath all of that, there's a version of you that wants to do great work, that loves to grow and improve at something meaningful, that deeply craves a reason to get out of bed that goes beyond a paycheck? That version of you isn't naive. It isn't lazy. It isn't waiting for the perfect conditions. It's already there. Autonomy, mastery, purpose. Those aren't just business concepts. They are the ingredients of a fully alive human being. And here's the last thing I'll leave you with. Your life doesn't change in one big dramatic moment. It changes in small decisions, made quietly, repeated every single day. The decision to take ownership of your work instead of waiting for permission. The decision to pursue getting better at something, not for the grade or the title, but because growth itself feels like living.
The decision to ask yourself, honestly, what you're actually for. What this life of yours is in service of. Those decisions don't make headlines, but they make lives. And Daniel Pink, through all the research and the science and the stories in Drive, is making one final essential argument. You were not built to be managed, you were built to be free. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If Drive hit you the way it hit me, please share this video with someone in your life who needed to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because we do this every week. One book, one conversation, one idea that might just quietly change something in you. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.